The Blunt Post with Vic.
Good morning and welcome to The Blunt Post with Vic. I am your host, Vic Gerami, the editor and publisher of The Blunt Post. The Blunt Post with Vic is a program that covers national, regional, and local headline news, offers analysis and commentary, and I interview members of Congress, local elected officials, and other high-profile public figures. For today's program, not only because the 110th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide is coming up on April 24th, but unfortunately and tragically, there are other genocides happening right now in real time. Of course, the most astounding one is the Palestinian genocide, the most well-documented genocide of probably all time. I feel like it's a live-streamed genocide, and there are other few. So I wanted to invite a guest that can really talk about this. And he's a very special person. He is an entrepreneur. He's an incredible philanthropist. And he's also the chair for the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region. Oshin Harootoonian is someone that's very well known and well respected. So we're going to be talking about Armenian genocide, not just what happened in 1915, but the ongoing genocide, the campaigns of hate, violence, and disinformation that has continued since 1915. And of course, it resulted in a second Armenian genocide, better known as Artsakh Genocide, between 2020 and 2023. So here is my interview with Oshin Harootoonian. Good morning, Oshin, and thank you for being on the Blunt Post with Vic this morning. How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you, Vic? Good morning.
Yeah, it's a good morning. You are probably busier than I am because you're doing advocacy work in DC.
Yes, we are here with a group of 100 individuals or activists here, and we are advocating certain issues in Congress on behalf of the Armenian National Committee and Armenian community.
I told the audience your, what you do, your title, and just a bit about the Armenian National Committee of America. But for someone who doesn't know anything about what you do, how would you describe ANCA?
Okay, the Armenian National Committee is the largest and most influential Armenian American grassroots political organization. What we do is basically, as an ANCA, we actively advance the concerns of the Armenian American community on a broad range of issues. The issues that we are most important is to foster public awareness in support of a free, united, and independent Armenia, to influence and guide U.S. policy on matters of interest to the Armenian American community, to represent the collective Armenian American viewpoint on matters of public policy while serving as liaison between the community and their elected officials. This is the basic agenda of the Armenian National Committee.
Okay, thank you for that. So, there's so much happening everywhere in the world and in our nation, in California, where both of us live. Let's just talk about the Armenian Genocide, the 110th anniversary coming up on April 24th. We've come a long way in 110 years in getting the U.S., first the House and the Senate in 2019 to recognize it, followed by President Biden in 21.
Yes.
But we still have ways to go. There's a lot more work to be done. Where do you think we're at? Your perspective on the Armenian Genocide recognition and the road ahead?
Well, I think we're on the right path. Genocide was, as you said, approved in 2019 and then 2021. However, unfortunately, uh, after the approval, the another genocide happened in Qarabakh or Artsakh. Um, for your audience, I want to explain Qarabakh so that they understand where it is. Qarabakh, as defined, was an autonomous region located in Azerbaijan that was populated by Armenia. Basically, it's an Armenian land. Um, in 2021, after Biden recognized the genocide for the original Armenian genocide in 1915 for the second time, Azerbaijan took the initiative because the Section 907, as you know, uh, prohibited sales of arms by by the United States to Azerbaijan was reversed. Arms were sold to Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan for many years was preparing itself to push the Armenian population out of Karabakh and recapture the area. Unfortunately, the second genocide happened then.
I just want
And
to I just want to
yes,
interrupt you for 1 second. The,
yes,
I'm glad that you brought this up. I just want to say that Azerbaijan, and I'll go back and say a little bit more about Artsakh, but Artsakh, which is the Armenian name of what
yep,
is the Republic of Artsakh, uh, the Soviets named it Nagorno-Karabakh, which is half Turkic, half Russian. And
yes,
it was in 2020 when Azerbaijan orchestrated a genocidal attack uh,
yes,
and, uh, and essentially committed a genocide between 2020 and 2023. So sorry about
yes.
that. I just wanted to.
Yes, I got the dates wrong. I'm sorry.
It's all
It
good.
was during COVID.
Yes,
They
yes.
used the opportunity, and they orchestrated the attack during COVID. And unfortunately, the world was silent again. And you're absolutely right. To be honest with you, the reason I use the opportunity to use the word Nagorno Karabakh, because if we're going back, and there's this thing. This is my opinion again, and does not reflect the opinion of Armenian National Committee. My opinion is that the boundaries of the autonomous region was defined then. After World War II, where all the boundaries of the countries were kind of set. And At that time, before in during between World War II and, if I correct me if I'm wrong, it was 1990 when the first Karabakh War started, where Karabakh Armenians claimed independent and named
91,
the country, huh?
91.
91, Artsakh. And the reason that happened was because the Azeris at the time were also trying to push us out of our lands, and they were heavily discriminating against the Armenians that occupied that land and were residents of that land for thousands of years, and they seek their independence. I just want to make sure that that portion of the history is not forgotten, that that territory has always been
I
defined
can
as an
even add,
autonomous region.
absolutely, I can even add to that. Artsakh was
Yes,
always an integral part of Armenia under many,
yes,
many kingdoms going back thousands of years.
yes,
In,
absolutely.
right after the Russo-Persian War of 1804, 1814, Artsakh was annexed by the Russians.
Yes,
And if you're just joining us, by the way, This is the Blunt Post with Vic on KPFK 90.7 FM. I'm your host, Vic Gerami, and I am speaking with Oshin Harootoonian, who is the chair of the Armenian National Committee of America, Western Region. And we are talking about different topics related to Armenian Americans who are going through perhaps the toughest period of our history since the Armenian Genocide, having also just experienced the second Armenian Genocide, commonly known as the Artsakh Genocide in 2020 to 2023. When the Soviet Union was established and Stalin started to divvy up all the different nations and kingdoms that Russia had captured through the centuries, he created different administrative borders, different titles for different regions and countries. Artsakh was given the oblast, and it had more autonomy than any other region. Its population, 96, 97% Armenian, always had been. And but what he did was he did something very sinister, which is he wanted to create more conflict within different people of the Soviet Union so that they don't ever gang up on the central power. And so he put Artsakh under the administrative control of Azerbaijan, administrative control. Artsakh never has been a part of an independent Azerbaijan. Now, Azerbaijan as a territory was established in 1918 by the Soviets to sort of gather up different tribes that lived in that area. And 2 years later, it was folded into the USSR. Azerbaijan as a sovereign nation did not come to be until 1991, which was about 5 months after Artsakh had already declared its independence from the USSR. And so Artsakh, following every letter of the law, had established itself as a Republic of Artsakh. But of course, Azerbaijanis were not happy with this because Artsakh is a very rich land in natural resources. It has very high altitude, great water resources. So they declared the war that you mentioned, the first war, which lasted until 94. And then there was a peace treaty. And then, of course, in 2020, Azerbaijan, with help from Turkey, Russia, and Israel, decided to completely force what's the word? They say don't use ethnic cleansing because it's not a legal term, but that forced deportations and massacres, which we saw, it meets every single definition of genocide by the United Nations.
Absolutely. And to continue, and now they're continuing with another false narrative saying that Armenia is actually Western Azerbaijan.
Right, which is absurd. Yeah.
Which is absurd. But again, you have to understand that majority of people on Earth are unaware of these facts, and this false narrative that they're spreading right now is just wrong. I mean, changing history narrative is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to livelihood of a nation.
Well, Azerbaijan, again, is only a 34-year-old nation. Its name is stolen from the northwestern region of Iran.
Absolutely.
Everything it claims as its cultural practices is either Persian, Russian, and some actually from Armenians. So this fictitious Western Armenian narrative is
Western Azerbaijan narrative.
Western Azerbaijan, that's right. It's just ludicrous. Anyone who knows anything about Armenia is anywhere you dig, you find a stone that's carved in Armenian that goes back thousands of years. So it's just the absurdity of the world we live in. Azerbaijan has lots of oil money and gas money um, to create this kind of propaganda out there with their
Yes.
lobbying groups and their public relations firms and such.
And I want to stress the other sad fact that meanwhile they're destroying every church, every historical monument. They want to completely clean the land and pretend that Armenians never lived there.
Yes, it's the cultural genocide, which is the next phase of the genocide they carried out, just demolishing
Mm.
monasteries and churches and cemeteries that are over 1,000 years old, while the world watches in deafening silence,
Yeah.
including UNESCO, whose
Yes.
responsibility is to monitor such things. But hey, we live in a world where money buys power, and power dictates who gets the attention.
Exactly, and that's the exact same thing they did in Nakhichevan region.
Correct.
If you want to explain to your audience about
Sure,
Nakhichevan,
Nakhichevan was another historic region. Actually, my family is from Nakhichevan.
same as my family. I just
Yeah,
wanted to, yeah.
yeah. So Nakhichevan was another historic part of Armenia for millennia that was annexed by the Russians in the early 1800s. And and again, Stalin put that under the administrative rule of Azerbaijan in 1920. And so, and there were, again, Nakhichevan had a vast majority of its population was Armenian. But after the Soviet Union fell, even actually before that, Azerbaijan uh, started to systematically erase all Armenian presence from Nakhichevan. They actually destroyed over 2,000 monuments. They include churches, monasteries, convents, cemeteries, schools, and such. I mean, there are videos. This happened mostly in 1990. There's actually a very famous video of a guy who just stood there and watched this one church be demolished. So it's cultural genocide that's happening. They want to make sure that there's no history or trace of Armenian presence, and it's happening again. And if you're just joining us, by the way, this is the Blunt Post with Vic on KPFK 90.7 FM. I'm your host, Vic Gerami, and I am speaking with Oshin Harootoonian, who is the chair of the Armenian National Committee of America, Western Region. And we are talking about different topics related to Armenian Americans who are going through perhaps the toughest period of our history since the Armenian Genocide, having also just experienced the second Armenian Genocide, commonly known as the Artsakh Genocide in 2020 to 2023. And we are speaking right before the Armenian Genocide commemoration, which is on April 24th. Oshin is in Washington, D.C., doing advocacy work. Oshin, what other items do you have on your agenda? What are you working on?
Well, one of the things, let's finish up the Armenian genocide part that apparently there would be a new legislation introduced by Congresswoman Dina Titus about Armenian genocide education. And it's like a $10 million 5-year deal that this money is going to be dedicated to Department of Education, whereby the money can also be allocated to the states and to the cities and to the educational institutions that are interested to promote to teach Armenian genocide education in their schools. The money would be available for that. This was a follow-up on the Armenian Genocide Resolution that was passed in 2019 and 2021. So we're following it up with an education bill so the public has the opportunity, the educators have an opportunity to educate this subject matter in the schools. The other advocacy items that we are following up, we're doing, there are two letters that are going to be out for signature by the Congress persons and the congressmen and women and the senators. One of them, the first letter being a letter about preserving Section 907, which is preventing arms to be sold to Azerbaijan. And the other would be also within that the enforcement of the Magnitsky Act, whereby all the perpetrators of the Second Armenian Genocide would be prosecuted, and the officials will be banned from doing any type of business transactions with U.S., or they lose the right of entry to U.S. I'm sure you're very familiar with the Magnitsky Act.
Yeah,
If you want to explain it to your
very important.
audience.
Yeah, actually, Congressman Ben Sherman tried to
Yeah,
introduce that um,
yeah,
in right after the invasion of Artsakh in 2020.
yeah,
Magnitsky Act is basically about accountability and holding people who
mm,
perpetrate genocides and crimes against humanity responsible for what they've done, and make sure that the United States acknowledges it, is part of the prosecuting of them, and that no other communication or benefits is available to them. So it's a very important thing. And of course, Section 907 refers to the Section 907 of the Freedom Act, which was established many years ago to make sure that no military aid is ever given to Azerbaijan if it was going to be used to attack, create war with its neighbors. Unfortunately, Section 907 was waived by both President Trump and President Biden. And one of the
yes,
ironies was that President Biden recognized the genocide in April of 21, and a week later, he waived, or Secretary Blinken waived the Section 907, and they gave 100 million to Azerbaijan, a nation that does not need anyone's money, a nation that produces terrorists. So their claim that they're going to use this money to ward off terrorists is just it's a joke.
yes.
Unfortunately, which brings me to this question. I thought about it right when we started chatting today. Is so President Trump did not, despite, and this is really important, in November and December of 2019, President Trump was president. The House with an overwhelming majority, recognized the Armenian genocide. And then a
The
month
Senate.
later, the Senate did unanimously, unprecedented. And yet President Trump did not recognize the genocide. And, you know, I'm not
Yeah.
shy to say why. I mean, President Trump has relationships with both President of Turkey, Erdogan, and Aliyev. Of Azerbaijan, has business dealings with them. He has two towers in Istanbul, etc. So, but President Biden obviously did. So, Oshin, do you think that President Trump will acknowledge the Armenian genocide in his address?
Well, we're hoping so, because we have the Secretary of State, Mr. Marco Rubio,
Rubio.
has been, yes, Marco Rubio has been very, very supportive of our issues. So has been Tulsi Gabbard. And I hope that their influence on this issue, and hopefully with the not promises, but with the initial, he had expressed support for the Armenian issues, to resolve the Armenian issue, Trump in his campaign. We're hoping that this will be the year that he would recognize it. We're not counting on it, but we are hoping
Yeah,
that he
we'll
would
see.
recognize it. One of our other pressing issues that we're working on, as you know, is the the hostage issue, the Armenian hostage issue.
Mhm.
And this is very important to our community right now. And we are in process of having this not as a legislation, but we want the support. We want to get the support of the Congress people about unconditional release of the Armenian prisoners, Armenian hostages from Azeri prisons. I mean, you can tell your audience the background about these Armenian prisoners
Well,
and the importance of their release, because in the new peace treaty that the Prime Minister of Armenia has come out with Azerbaijan, there is no mention of the release of the prisoners, and this is something that we are not supporting this new peace treaty that has come out, because the concessions that has been made, no Armenian prisoner release, and also the mandate of Armenia to change its constitution is just unacceptable. You know about the new
of
peace
course,
treaty, though.
of course. So, and if you're just joining us, by the way, this is the Blunt Post with Vic on KPFK 90.7 FM. I'm your host, Vic Gerami, and I am speaking with Oshin Harootoonian, who is the chair of the Armenian National Committee of America, Western Region. And we are talking about different topics related to Armenian Americans who are going through perhaps the toughest period of our history since the Armenian Genocide, having also just experienced the second Armenian Genocide, commonly known as the Artsakh Genocide in 2020 to 2023. So
Yeah.
just so that people who are listening know, when Artsakh was invaded in September of 2020, it was a genocidal attack. So basically, they were killing anyone that they could. They were using white phosphorus munitions to burn down forests and villages. They were killing even the elderly and disabled and such. There are hundreds and hundreds of Armenians that are missing. So we're not even counting them as the hostages. Of course, there were a lot of hostages taken during that. But then what happened was, even though they occupied 90% of Artsakh in 2020, the other 10% was left. And in around 2022, Azerbaijan blocked the only access road from Artsakh to Armenia called Lachun Corridor, and essentially trying to starve Armenians of Artsakh, 120,000 of them, to death. And this lasted over 9 months, despite the International Criminal Court, UN, EU, all kinds of resolutions and mandates. Azerbaijan did not budge. And then in September of 2023, Azerbaijan went in with an offensive and started to indiscriminately shoot and kill anyone they could find, which led to the 120,000 people to leave Artsakh and go to Armenia. During this time, they took hostage all the officials, Artsakh officials, from president, prime minister, all the ministers, etc., including a gentleman by the name of Ruben Vartanian, who is a very well-to-do philanthropist who was basically in Artsakh trying to, help his motherland, and he too was taken. And these people have, they've done nothing wrong to be in the situation that they are. And if anyone knows prisons of nations like Azerbaijan, they are horrendous. They're barbaric. They're like from the Middle Ages. These people are being tortured. They're being starved. They're being beaten. They are sexually molested and raped in a lot of cases, especially if you're in Azerbaijan and you are non-Muslim, you get the worst treatment. So this is the situation that they're in. And there have been calls made by international human rights organizations and NGOs, etc., for their release, but nothing's happened because Aliyev supplies oil and gas to a lot of the Western world. Therefore, he has been emboldened and enabled to do this. He's even laundering Russian oil and sending it to
Yeah.
Europe, and Europe is just basically pretending they don't know that it's Russian oil. So this is the situation, and that too, again, Oshin, is very important of releasing these hostages who are, from anyone's report, people who have spoken with them, seen them, and we've seen their pictures come out. They look like they've aged 20 years in a matter of 2, 3
Absolutely.
years. So that's the situation of the hostages. There are a lot more than what's on record, by the way. Azerbaijan just doesn't wouldn't allow any international observers to go in there. There's no press freedom in Azerbaijan, therefore they do what they want to do and they claim what they want to claim. And pretty much nothing that comes out of Azerbaijan from the highest level to press is true. None of it. And that's that.
And those are the letters we're circulating for freeing the prisoners and letting them know that we're not in support of this new peace treaty that is being worked on because I think the peace treaty is being signed under duress because they are forcing knowingly that they have better arms, better army. They're forcing us to sign a treaty that is actually not going to work for us. It's not going to work for the Armenian nation. It's the world has to realize that both dictators, Aliyev and Erdogan, are definitely trying to wipe Armenia out and wipe it off of the maps. And this genocidal program needs to stop.
Yes, they have, especially Erdogan has this pan-Turkic ambition of connecting Turkey to the rest of Turkic world. And the only thing that's getting in the way is this tiny
Yes.
country as large as Rhode Island that sort of is in the way.
Yes.
And a lot of the rhetoric that comes out of both Turkey and Azerbaijan, I mean, they don't even hide it anymore. Their Armenophobia, their racism, their anti-Christian sentiment. I mean, it's all out there, you know.
Yes.
And yet, the hypocrisy of our own nation, despite both Democratic and Republican administrations, of having worked with both nations, Turkey being a NATO member, it's unfathomable. And Turkey is basically land grabbing in the Middle East right now,
Absolutely.
currently in Syria, and basically sheltering ISIS and Al Qaeda. And nonetheless, we are,
And as you know, we have a huge population of Armenians living in Syria, which their livelihood is threatened as well. And
yes,
it's
a lot of them
a
in
big concern.
northern Syria, and I don't even want to call them administration. That makes them official, but the new Syrian government, in quotations, which is made up of people who were considered terrorists just like a few years ago.
Yes.
They're tearing down churches. They're terrorizing Christian communities in Syria, and Armenians and Assyrians and Yazidis and are
And non-Sunni Muslims as well.
right, exactly, are the target. So
That's right.
there's so much there's so much work to be done in so many places and so much hypocrisy, starting with our own foreign policy as to what we actually care about and what we ignore. Yeah. Oshin, before we go, anything else you want to add? Announcements and such?
No, I just want to make sure that every Armenian should be active and should be an activist.
Absolutely.
If we just ignored our issues and go about our lives, nothing is going to get done. And in order for us to be able to prevent all the wrongdoings and all the future programs that Aliyev and Erdogan have, we need to be active in the community. We need to advocate on behalf of our nation, of our country, so that we don't lose what we have left. I really encourage everyone to be an activist in any form. It doesn't have to be ANCA. Vic, I admire your commitment to the Armenian community, and I really hope that this word goes out so people understand how important it is to be active and have their voices heard to prevent atrocities from happening.
Exactly. If you don't have a voice, you're not counted. And if you say, "I don't do politics," as the old saying goes, if you don't do politics, politics will do you, and it does affect you. And I echo what you said. Definitely, everyone needs to be an activist. The alternative is unthinkable. And I also want to announce for those listening is that my nonprofit organization, advocacy organization, Truth and Accountability League, is having an Armenian Genocide commemoration event called Tal Remembrance and Honor on April 24th at the Glendale Central Library. And in addition to remembrance for the Armenian Genocide, both 1915 and Artsakh Genocide, we're also honoring exceptional high-profile people who not only exemplify Tal's mission, but also are doing incredible work in the community for not just Armenians, but non-Armenians too. And I'm happy to say that out of our 7 honorees, Oshin is one of them. So
thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And thank you for being on the program today.
Thank you, Vic. Thank you so much. Good luck, and I'm sure continue your good work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oshin, thank you very much for being on the show today. I appreciate your insight, your expertise, your passion. I hope to do this again on the program, but of course I will see you at Truth and Accountability League's event to commemorate the Armenian Genocide on April 24th. Thank you again, Oshin. Before we go, I'd like to thank my producer, Ricky Herrera, and KPFK, the station that brings you unfiltered and commercial-free news, opinion, and hopefully some inspiration. Thank you for joining me today on The Blunt Post with Vic. For more information, please visit thebluntpost.com. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Vic Gerami.
The Blunt Post with Vic.